Start. Action.
क्या होता है गुड मॉर्निंग गुड इवनिंग क्या बोलता है मैं भूल ही गया
I can't stop it. You're the one laughing. Yes.
क्या ही बोलूं मैं अभी ये फ्लो गया अभी so basically I'm gonna say Hello there, and welcome back to episode 3 of Open Mind Safe Spaces. This is a podcast where we have casual conversations about mental health. I'm your host, Ahmed, the psychologist, and today I'm joined with our lovely guests.
Hi, I'm Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Manasi.
Hi, I'm Aditi.
How are you guys doing? Welcome back.
Doing well, doing good.
We are 3 episodes and consistent. We have a new guest also today. New views, new opinions we're going to hear, and you are in for quite a ride because we're going to be continuing our previous topic on relationships and situationships. A little bit focusing on what individuals can do if they do find themselves to be in a situationships. So I think one of the questions that we got from our previous podcast is how to kind of set expectations as well as boundaries if you find yourself to be in a situationship in order to make sure that it does not impact you the way that it would.
I think one of the first things to do is know where your expectations, where your values and boundaries are. If you don't know that, you will never be able to set them.
I think you need to introspect why you're in a situationship, realize you're in a situationship, and come to a common ground, right? Don't keep things hidden. Don't, because a lot of the times you end up in a situationship because there's opposing needs and wants. Just communicate, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, like, it's okay. You can find another person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like first is knowing what you want and knowing how to communicate that is something that is very important. So agreeing to both of them, I think, yeah, communication is the key.
Absolutely. I think anytime a situationship starts, it starts off with communication. Because the person who does not want to be committed would be very clear of their expectations, and that the other person who wants it would be like, let's see where it goes and how it would go. So we do see that as a trend that we're not able to be more assertive with what we want because there is also the other need that makes us want it, even though whether there's commitment or not. So how do we navigate through that?
I think figuring out why there is this chronic fear, and it is a very like this anxiety and fear that comes up of not being in a relationship. Either it is peer pressure, either it's the narratives that surround us on a daily basis that, oh, you have to be in a relationship. You can't be happy without a relationship. What are you doing? You're 22, you're 23, you're growing old. Where is the relationship? And I think once we start to decode those and the things that we've been told and that, are sitting in our heads, and we start to realize why we actually want a relationship, I think that's the point where you can actually make an informed decision.
Right.
Yeah, I think people are too scared of rejection, right? I think when you kind of approach a relationship, kind of have the idea that it can go right and it can go wrong. Don't be scared of rejection. There are so many people out there who might be better than your current partner, right? And you don't need to be stuck with a bad one if you feel like you're going to be alone, right? Trust me, yeah, you're going to find someone.
Yeah, I think again, I think it is a part of also knowing who you are. So once you know who you are, once you know what is it that you want, what is it that your expectations are, and knowing, again, I get back to the one thing, I think it's communication. Communication is everything.
I think one more aspect apart from rejection to add on is I think people tend to idealize that partner. So when that happens, even though they don't want them or they may not be able to give them the kind of commitment that they're looking for, we tend to see where it goes. Again, they become very in the moment kind of individuals who want to at least see where it goes so that they get the best out of it. But then what happens is that attachment comes into the picture. What started off situationship starts off with both of them wanting it casual, both of them not wanting it committed because they're not getting it in the first place. So they're still willing to settle down. Then one person gets attached. Then it becomes a little bit more complicated. But I think adding on, we have a few reels focusing on what individuals in situationships and relationships can do in order to foster a better relationship with their partners. Let's have a look at that and see what we can get through it.
Oh, thank you. Hey, great to meet you, by the way. I'm anxious attachment. Yeah, likewise. I'm avoidant attachment. Can I just say, I'm immediately attracted to your stoic nature. You seem so independent and confident. Yeah, give it a few months. You'll be calling me cold and self-centered. Guilty. You know, I'm actually attracted to how emotionally expressive you are. I've pretty much shut off all my feelings, so. Well, pretty soon you'll be saying you feel completely smothered by my emotions. Hey, looks like I have feelings after all. Hey, can I ask you a personal question? Hey, what's up? What are you afraid of in relationships? Rejection, mainly? Being seen as a failure? You? Abandonment? How's that manifesting itself for you? Inability to set boundaries or advocate for my needs. I mean, heck, I don't even know if I'm allowed to have needs, right? I'm terrified to upset people. Even people I don't like. I pretty much avoid any real vulnerability or intimacy. It kind of terrifies me thinking of getting too close, you know what I mean? Interesting. I tend to feel like I can't get enough closeness. I've never experienced that. We really are opposites, aren't we? Yeah. So we probably shouldn't get together, right? Or, hear me out, we could get into a long-term situationship where we break up occasionally, of course, but you always come back because you think you can change me, and I enjoy connecting with no commitment. That sounds miserable. But there's just something about you. I can't put my finger on it. It's called being emotionally unavailable. You should be used to it given your childhood. Ah, yes, that's it.
Right. That was funny and relatable. I think we've all been there at one particular point of time, or we know people who've been there. But I think one of the things that he mentioned was with regards to, we're compatible because we have contrasting and very opposite attachment styles. So what do you guys have to say about that?
Wow. I mean, yeah, the whole idea of, pursuers and distancers in relationships, it's a very common pattern, I think, even in relationships. And I feel like there is a reason for it. Like, it's just the way these dynamics play out. There is something so, I won't say attractive, but there is something so demanding about it. And it just takes you in. It just swirls you in.
I think people say, anxious and avoidance attract, but it's not that big of a problem. Like, people can learn to deal with it, right? I personally think you can come out of your attachment style, even if your other person doesn't have a secure attachment. If you're both willing to work towards it, like I was an anxious attachment person, right? I've come out of it. I used to be people pleaser, no boundaries. Like, now I know how to do it, so it's not that big of a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think the combination that we typically see is an anxious getting attracted to an avoidant, and avoidant getting attracted to anxious. It's the chase that people like.
Yeah, and also this idea of I can fix the other person.
Right.
Right? Because anxious attachment people are like, there's something wrong with this person and I'm the right person and I need to fix that person. Mm-hmm. Even the anxious one is, the avoidant one is trying to teach the anxious one to set boundaries, but extreme, right? Both of them are trying to fix each other. That's why they stay key. I can fix this person, make them like me. And you're failing.
With that, I think with regards to also finding that little bit of compatibility, what we've seen with partners is that gratification that they get. For example, hypothetically, I'm an avoidant person, and now I have gone to my anxious partner. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Are you feeling okay? And that makes them feel like the person who was completely opposite is giving me the attention. And same for, the anxious person, that the person who constantly needs space is now coming and giving me that attention. Keeps that little kick in the relationship where they wanted more and more.
Here is what to do if your partner is defensive. When your loved one gets defensive, it's usually because they don't feel safe. As somebody who used to be extremely defensive herself, it used to feel like my previous partners weren't criticizing my actions, but instead were criticizing who I am as a person and were questioning my good-heartedness and my good nature as a human. If you can meet their defensiveness with curiosity, by getting curious and asking questions, instead of just reacting to their reactivity, you can start tending to that feeling of unsafety. A lot of times, once you do that, you will start to notice their defensiveness start to soften and their walls start to come down, and their willingness and their compassion come back online.
Well, that's an interesting take. Mm-hmm. Now, see, I see there are pearls of wisdom there and stuff that is, I feel like it puts a lot of onus on the other partner to be in control of their reactions, to be able to process and be present in such a way. And that's a lot of emotional burden on one person only. I think it requires action from both people. And I do love the part about the softening. And I think that's a very important part in a conflict, where once you're able to get them to access their inner worlds and these emotions, then there is their ability to be vulnerable comes back on. And I do think that's important, but I don't think it should be just the responsibility of the other partner to get this out of them.
Yeah, I think so. As someone who used to be very defensive, I would take every criticism or every pointer as a personal attack. And I think what needs to be done by the other partner is that kind of saying that, okay, I'm just saying this for this situation right now. Other than that, there is no like harmful intention coming out of this. When you slowly start doing that, the other person also kind of realizes that, it's not a personal attack.
Okay, so what was mentioned in the reel, that can be one of the reasons, but there can be other reasons as well for the girl putting the walls up. So I think, again, I feel like communication is the key, and you should know how to put the words. You should be genuine enough, know what you're feeling, right? Communicate what is it that you want, right? And how is it that you're going to go through the situation. So I think, yeah.
I think, like all of y'all mentioned, the responsibilities of both the partners. But the point I think that she was trying to make is, if in case there has been defensiveness, like you try to not be defensive and you communicate in a better manner, but if it has happened, then the other person who is a little bit more regulated can take that one step to kind of hold the person's hand and be that curious, get that curious mind into the picture, which may help to break it down. But does not mean that, like you mentioned, it's not the responsibility that, if there is somebody who's defensive, you need to constantly, because defensiveness is fine at the moment, because in the sense, it's just a reaction. And I think we pay a lot of, a lot of importance and value to the reaction, again, as long as there is some limitations to it, but not blaming them or holding them completely responsible for it, where the conversation now moves from the topic to now the reaction.
Yeah.
I think that is a very common way that we see fights just losing focus as to where it started from. The moment you address the topic, then come and talk about the reactivity, then come and talk about the defensiveness. I think that's a good way to prioritize and then break down the behavior, rather than just labeling the person with that behavior.
I think there is this one very common thing that don't assume, ask. Just ask. Question what is happening. So, yeah.
So the first step is for themselves to kind of regulate. Whether it's the person who is being defensive to, or the person who is becoming defensive, just... and I think you're more sorted. Wow, that was, I think, a very important and very fruitful conversation, focusing on certain tips that we as individuals, as well as the audience, can take in order to navigate through their relationships, as well as situationships, in order to cater to themselves first, as well as their partner. But what would be your quick takeaways from what we discussed today?
I think really the importance of knowing your own values and being able to communicate that well. Just the importance of communication.
Yeah, I think same. Like, introspect, know who you are before you get very involved with someone else, and communicate. Like, most important.
Yeah, so to be honest with yourself, to acknowledge what you're feeling, and communicate. Yes.
I think if we see the communication being, consistent, so I think based on what we discussed today, communication, setting boundaries, having clear-cut expectations, understanding what you can provide, what you cannot provide, and finding that middle ground helps you to be there for your partner in the way that they want to be, and you can request your partner to love you in the way that you want to be loved. So that makes the entire thing a lot more easier. I know it's easier said than done, but emotions comes into the picture. And I hope that you've got a lot more information from our wonderful guests here. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for the next episode.